Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on the planet. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Abundance Blueprint podcast with your host, Naomi Saadiq. This is season 2, episode 37. It's our Soulful Sunday episode. The air date is scheduled for August the 3rd, 2025. And the title of today's show is simply A Legacy in the Silence. So I want to welcome you to the Abundance Blueprint podcast. This is an award-winning show where real stories meet real strategy and soul meets structure. I'm your host, Naomi Saadiq, licensed agent, creative producer, and advocate for women who've survived more than they've ever signed up for. And on this platform, we believe in an inclusive environment. So I do work with all families, all cultures, all faiths, or many faiths, right? Because this show is not about my personal religious beliefs or practices. And we don't do manipulation, coercion, or forceful, shady tactics here. That's why I always set the tone early, because you deserve a space where your story matters and your peace is protected. So today is not a pitch. It's a conversation for your soul and not your wallet. So, thing that I like to do to reset our internal system, teaches us not to live in fight or flight, is to inhale, exhale, and begin. So inhale, hold it, and exhale. All right, and let's begin. So part 1, I want to talk a little bit about the pause between the chapters, right? There's something sacred about the threshold between the end of a month and the beginning of another. It's a place where we reflect, reset, and sometimes retreat. This week I sat with that pause, and it didn't come gently. I had to terminate a few contracts this week, not because I wanted to, but because peace costs more than business. Sometimes the fear of failure shows up dressed like a maybe, or a not now, or a missed call you didn't chase. I felt all of that this week, not because I was afraid of letting others down, but because I didn't want to admit I needed to pivot again. But pivoting isn't failure, it's just feedback. And this week, I listened. And so here's a little bit about the health we don't talk about, right? I went back to the doctor last week. Another appointment, another test, another moment of holding my breath. The kind of checkups that I have that sometimes don't always test my body, right? This is a test of faith, memory, and history. Sort of like for you too. You might go through things where the kind of checkup that you have doesn't just test your body, it tests your faith and your memory and your history. And so they asked questions, I gave answers. My mind was somewhere else, somewhere between fear and faith. But because I've been here before, and every time I have to remind myself, I am not who I was the last time I sat down in this chair. I've grown, I've healed, I've seen too much light to stay stuck in the dark. And so that's what kept me this week, right? Provision versus purpose, right? I also am starting a new Medicare sales role on Tuesday. And let me be honest, it wasn't a part of the plan. But my family needs income, and abundance doesn't shame survival. Sometimes you have to take the gig because it funds the vision. You clock in so you can one day check out and cash in on your dream. And that tension, that push and pull between what you're called to do and what you have to do, it's real and it's sacred. Right? So, when love breaks, right? I don't usually talk about heartbreak unless it's tied into a happy ending, but this one doesn't. Not yet. My brother and I, we're not speaking. And it's not the kind of silence that's filled with hope. It's the kind that aches because I thought we were stronger. I thought we were more aligned. But assumptions will humble you, right? And it's hard losing someone who's still alive. It's hard grieving someone who doesn't know that they're gone from your life. But I had to choose my peace, and even if it meant grieving family, right? So why August feels so heavy for me? August is really layered, right? It's not just the 8th month. It's a memory wrapped in weight. August 11th is my mother's birthday, or was my mother's birthday, and she's the reason that this show still exists. And she suffered at the hands of someone who said, "I love you," in a time when leaving wasn't an option, in a world that didn't offer refuge for Black women in pain. There were no platforms in the 70s, and no podcasts, and no healing circles, no safe houses with grant funding, no hotline, no blueprint, just silence. And so when I speak now, it's not just for me, it's for her. It's for every woman who suffered quietly, every woman who was shamed into staying, and every mother who made it look easy so her daughter could imagine something more. So there is legacy in the silence. This podcast is my offering, not to impress you, not even to monetize, but to honor, right? I don't know where you are on your journey today, but I know this: you, and you. If you've lost a piece of yourself lately, if you've had to walk away from people that you love, if you've said yes to something you're not passionate about just to pay the bills, if you've been silent because the truth was too heavy, you are not alone. And you are not less powerful because of it. You're just in a sacred pause. So I want to close with this. I am not what broke me. I am the voice that rose when silence had no name. So for me, this isn't just a podcast. This is a blueprint for healing, for honoring, for rising. I want to thank you for listening to our Soulful Sundays episode of the Abundance Blueprint podcast with your host, Naomi Saadiq. Until next time, stay consistent, stay focused, and remember the goals. I love you. Intentionally Soul Tribe. Be well today. All right? I'll see you next time.